To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly, I go for teachings and so forth. I attain Buddhahood. Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly, I go for refuge. Thus, listening to teachings and so forth, I attain Buddhahood. Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly, I go for refuge. Thus, listening to teachings and so forth, I attain Buddhahood. All transmigrators.
Okay, on those citat. Resani marvata sani mamanto namju. Sambo sancho molam kita torwa sanjirangi sung sancho molam nagi yala tinte ngato shira toyo resta namju yala tinte tsosa tikjang tak ke chimbuchik chawalwa oti tingato shira toyo suchitat.
Okay, so being Sunday, we are continuing with the King of Prayers, the prayer of sublime conduct, which comes from the sutra and is thus the word of the Buddha. And we're looking at the 7-limb practice. The 7-limb practice is very important because it is a means of gathering the accumulations and purifying obscurations. Okay, so also I need to say good afternoon to everyone before we started. And in terms of the 7 limbs, we have completed the limb of prostrations, the limb of making offering, the limb of confession of negativity, and of rejoicing.
What is it? Tatri and Shokor Kulva Kuba said, Shoko Kuba Kuasidata and Gilamala Peta, Chesmuroche said, the Ujishana, Choko Tadi, Sancho Molam Tinala, Sikartusana Kanam Chuchu Chite Romanam Sida, Sancho Rembas and Machani, Kumbo Tita, Tamchela, Kololana Mebakua goes, Odati Sitat Serva.
Okay, so today the first limb is the requesting of the turning of the wheel of Dharma, which simply said is request, please making a request to one's teachers to teach. And the verses are lights into the 10 directions, Buddhists who found the passionless stage of enlightenment. To all of you, I direct this request, turn the incomparable wheel of Dharma.
What was it? Tanamgit Chasola Namjutaji. I'm going to Jebe Chutu to the Sunan and Yamechebe Kautu Tawata. In Bache Anerangitula Mende Yobaina. And the Tita Chuko Kaptu de Tanda de Sidi Kaptu Ledora. Rangi Mende de Kala, Sumbu Goku Erwa.
Los.
Sumbu Goy, but Sumbu Gokane. And a chum Sumbu Goti Holochilla Menerva.
Los.
Holo.
Los.
Chiki Holo Corridor. Temperature Holochilla Meni. Otu Spa. Chokoro. And it Tigala. Sumbu Gokane to Spinetama by Cheti to Serva.
Okay, so that one is doing this 7 limb with from the prostrations and so forth as part of the preliminary practices. Would be like the necklace of good fortune, and one has a mandala that one has used. Then at this verse, one would make 9 heaps on the base. At the mandala base, and visualize that as a Dharma wheel, and you would offer that with the recitation.
What to say? Ra Tana Namgi Tama Ra Yidam Flat in the set up Mena, Rang Sangbala Minerva,
Yes.
Sangbala Mene, and 소신 되게 사말라니 배. 저거 그럴 몇 번째네. 소신 속에 신화에 배달라만 겨워서 되지만 그게 샤셰 저거 거기에서 샤셰 나송선을 또 스탠디티야 두스레와.
No, gone that Geshe Dhonam, yeah, we'll missing. Also Tamil we nangshi, you know?
타멜베 나와 타말 와치네 이담 하셀 담메나
Los.
랑 상발라 메네 아니
Los.
저거 소와데 레스라 아 이담 힐라 세타비나 타 타랑 샤마도 시 상발 메야 드리요 말와
Really.
도시 간제다 소신이나 소신도 그 저거 그와 샬기 셰송 상배 제거래요.
Los. Okay. So if you have not generated yourself as a meditational deity and are just thinking of yourself as an ordinary being, then in making the request, one thinks of oneself as Brahma, who requested the turning of the wheel of Dharma, and that you, in that way, you think of requesting the merit field of the teachers, Buddhas, and so forth to turn the wheel of Dharma, and you feel like you have kind of met them directly and made that request.
따뜻 저거 꾸베 라제스는 된다. 이게 펠라다 란산 제베체 안에 랑기 마세르 랑기 나타 손 사양드베 바자샤게 세사르와 따뜻 코데버데
Sung, so sangi gi sung.
상기 되걸라다 소소 지다 상기 되걸라다 상기 송도도 배다지 가서래 주고고야라 다 도바샤요 말와
Right.
오다 대투야기 바자샤야지 대직체 대갈라다 쇼봉기 레사데 nhiệm nhiệm 몰라 도서 쇼봉기 레 니마사샤자도 또 다도야 쇼봉기 레 보야
Really? Okay, so that if one was to say not so much the practice of requesting the turning of the wheel of Dharma, but the benefits of that. One is by requesting the turning of the wheel of Dharma places imprints to have the speech of the Buddha and one's own future attainment of enlightenment. And secondly, it purifies any previous karma of abandoning the Dharma. It's an anti-purifies.
어두 세타 대한 하게지 로이조나 랑기 르베 다음에 뚫니 아니 소신남라 두스파 초코로스 메바체토이나 데스는 개침부사게서와 하고도 다치단 거라 저거 그거라 때네베 손은 개침부사게 숨도 하고도
In general, requesting the wheel or turning of the wheel of the Dharma creates a very vast merit, but if one's mind kind of can hold this thought, one can think of emanating limitless bodies, all of whom are making requests to all the merit field to turn the wheel of Dharma, and again that makes it a very vast merit.
어두스르다디 조금을 먹으시면서 대체다디가라 tamado chamato de togorba tatikala chupadi yala chupa nyangele meda so atabadi yala kuinda.
Okay, so now we will go on to the next one, which is requesting the Buddhas or teachers not to pass away.
Oh, to stata nyangele meda ba so atabala sikarak to yosala. 주주권을
양은
하나 주주지도 도만을
간시 대달라
하나 주주지도 전주를 봤어 이마전 공부되다 콜은 양에대도 가시 대달 도 콜은 페이지 되지 가와신게도 예수와인 다게 탐모를 줬어가 기세 되와
네라
Oto to the cheta, you let me know so whatever the kitchen which ready or that they do at
Okay, so the verse of requesting not to pass away is lights until the deep. No, what am I doing? O Master showing, wishing to show parinirvana, stay with us and teach, I pray, for as many eons as there are specks of dust in order to bring goodness and joy to all beings.
What to stay young element of a sword debaki large that largest and the table that pays and a tilla around Timothy rings in Tobiachra. Timothy rings in setting boy was a
Loss.
and ranky that the Kawajamatun to let the danger water. Ranky settled with so terrible on it settled with choice, you know.
Loss.
Ranky settled with choice here.
Okay, so this is an important practice or request, and again, where the one says, rather than a practice, that the benefits or the results from this, that one becomes a holder of the deathless state, which simply said is that oneself attains long life by making this request. And it said that making this request is the supreme method for accomplishing long life.
Gewa karito china ipe ta sanje gi thile re sigorwa
Yes.
sanje gi thile yin ta sanje gi thile de ta lama sanje kuin de ngo tu spa chadu wala ta ti lama nyangale me ta warang gi wish nyangale me da ba so ta ba ina ta ti gi karsor ti me da ba so ta te kala lame chi sun ka drop che tu se ba ina ti gi ani pe lame setu ya dro de yarwa
Yes.
lama tat nambyong ga shirwa lame jisun ka dup chegena tati lame setu gi chore se yawa
Yes.
setu gi chore se re tati kala odi ti kala kardi yorsana ti nyagale meta so ta pati gi lame susu lama song cha ba tuk sumbu so ba Mateba Yeme Kebal Soba Tindeki Digdebe the Tardu is or
Yes. Okay. Right. So that then in general, whatever virtue we create is said to arise from the enlightened activities of the Buddhas. And if one thinks of the enlightened activities of the Buddhas, then one thinks of one's teachers who are in the nature of all the objects of refuge, one's Buddhas and teachers of being of one nature. So when one requests them not to pass away, and also practices in accordance with the instructions of one's teachers, this is the supreme method for accomplishing the long life of one's teacher. So that following the instructions of practice of one's teacher is a kind of accomplishing a long life practice for one's teacher. And then by making this request, Geshe said there are some things which are purified. Kondak Geshe, so
Lame Sung Chaba. How say? Lame Sung Chese, the Macheba de Yorata.
Yes.
Lame Sung Chaba Surale, two by Yorata, two Madeba Sweat in the Ura.
Yes.
What two Basero, two Sumba Soba. And Tarnishan Lamalayan, so Matepa Trechua in the Yora.
Yes.
Or that Tendegi that Yapata Tip in the Yoro, the third.
Okay. So then, and also by making this request, there are specific purifications of faults or negativity. One, of not following the instructions of one's teacher, which can arise. Then also of what they say is like disturbing the mind of the teacher, or having lack of faith in one's teacher. So this request purifies those.
Oh, the third egg. What the Nyamboto is or Nyamboti. What they are with the course self chasma.
Silver tassel. Okay, so this request acts as the antidote for those karmas, faults, and purifies them.
또 라제 데레도 왔다 간제다 저거 어쨌든 아니를 믿어 봐서도 버튼 남기 다디 야데 룩수치라 되어 단달 차시라 랑게 메데 다디 단다디 시디 갑도 주주체베 갑도 되나 랑게 메데 데 콜라 심봉아 로 심봉아 심봉아 콜리 데 안에베 슈트를 메네로 아 도시 갸tum다 데데 슈트를 데 메네 데 슈트를 메네 소시레라 토게시나타 산제데 아마 산제 찬스로 소바 카페세 타브레 담라 소바트 카즈네 데레라 투스와레라 페 메바체 페레 코란토야 타치 냥을 메도 소와타바나 시제 샤셰 나소 셈베데 메바체 텐데 치고야 텐데 숭고르와.
Okay, so these are aspects of the practice, and then also there is the tradition. Again, if one has a mandala base that one is using in one's preliminary practice, at this verse one makes a 5-heap mandala on the base, thinking that this is with the thought that it is like a Vajra throne that you are offering, and you think that that is offered to each a member of the merit field, as many as you have visualized of your teachers, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and meditational deities, and thinking again that one has directly made this request and offered the throne to each of them. Okay, so these are the important points in relationship to these verses, and one can see that they have great benefits. And while making the request may cause oneself to have long life, but to make thinking of that, making that request to not pass away as accomplishing the long life of one's teacher, that is a great benefit. Yes. Okay, then we come to dedication with many explanations. Okay, so that the verse of dedication, may any small merits that I have amassed by thus prostrating, making offerings, confessing, rejoicing, and asking the Buddhas to remain and teach the Dharma, be dedicated to now to supreme and perfect enlightenment. So that one is thinking of all the virtues that one has created by reciting the previous 6 limbs, that you are dedicating these, and also all the virtue that one creates in the 3 times, or dedicating all these roots of virtue. And
사실 심비타지 산제 공부토베치도 뭐지나 대항어 딱 되기들에 디스케치도 차송하지다.
And then not only that, but also one can think of not only all one's own virtues, but all the virtues of others, so of all sentient beings of the three times, that all these virtues are dedicated to both oneself and all sentient beings, attainment of sentient beings. And so we can see that then that dedication becomes more vast again.
보통실 따뜻다 딱 뭐와 제베티기 이와 뭐와 제베티기 아니 왜 드불라 페란스 테니스 라스 뭐와 제베티기 드불라 페모케네 지단 드불 ले खारे जो चीज़ के में खारे चीज़ ना कोई टिबु तो यूँ सुना को लेते था डोर वो लेते को जोड़ डोर वा तंगोवा चेशा के ना थी ये कने टिबु ती काज़ो यूँ ना पोताया में खर्च हो रहे जोया में बची इस और वा तो चिता कोंडो नमके मंजू थी कोंडो डो बची ना कोंडो के ता के बाद ऐसा चुंगे और स्केच चीज़ और वा कोंडो के कैसा चुमडोरे इसके जैसे योरे लोटा की कैसा चुमडोरे इसके जैसे योरे तक अंदर कांचे तो कोंडो ता लोटा कैसा माचुम्पा ये ना ता रांगी तंदर चांचू सिम की जैसे ने केवा मोशक ये ना ता चांचू माथो पातो ता केवा दीपा दे रेस अब पे खंडे शागिर्स ना तो जमसो ना लच्चू ठीक पाची लूँगा ये ना तो जमसो मासे पर तो चुट ठीक पाती कुछ तो मरवा देना सीरियस पे सुनते चलो दूसरे.
Okay, so that in general, whether the karmic action, whether it is virtuous or non-virtuous, once its result has been completed, then the karma is exhausted. But if you dedicate your virtue, then it becomes inexhaustible. In general, there is the advice that with anger is able to destroy our roots of virtue, and also wrong view is able to destroy our roots of virtue. But if do not destroy them, if one has dedicated one's virtue with a mind of bodhicitta, linked to a mind of bodhicitta, the spirit of enlightenment, then until enlightenment is attained, that karma is not exhausted. And the illustration is used is that if you put a drop of water in the ocean until the ocean was dry, that drop of water would remain.
What was the country simply Kavala? Zoya what was said Tinerwata?
Yes.
Could Tibu Katsunyone could Zoya Mevo to soon the Jerva?
Yes. So when we dedicate with link to the spirit of enlightenment bodhicitta, then that dedication is inexhaustible. However many results arise, it is not exhausted.
chanchu sem gi simba ina kondo ge keta chung thu mare se choro digala thap de sharab ni ka sharab ge simba ina ale lota ge keta chung thu mare se o tu serwa tadi dire ta nam jo ma jo kewa ngodu gala kewa kharita uche pa ina ti semche thamche ge tu sa je komba te ge to wa shu se chikche diga sharab gi sia ta de sana karsana gewa Turkey rang, Kasamo chicken rang, and Mobe Yulta, Chanchu Serva, Chanchurva, and then Kiwa Moba. This Sumka Rashin is and the two Spartan, Sherby, Corsam Simbarva,
Loss.
There is a better Lota get to Marota to that.
Loss. Okay, so that if one, in general, it is said that anger and wrong view can destroy one's root to virtue, but when we dedicate the virtue linked to the spirit of enlightenment, bodhicitta, then that root of virtue is not destroyed by anger. And then if we consider that we cultivate both method and wisdom, when we dedicate linked to wisdom, then that prevents our root to virtue being destroyed by wrong view. So that whatever virtue we create, we think of this being a cause to fulfill the welfare of all sentient beings and to attain enlightenment. And when we link that dedication to wisdom, then we are thinking of the one who, oneself, the one who is dedicating, the object being the attainment of enlightenment, and the virtue that is dedicated, that all these three spheres or 3 points, 3 things lack inherent existence.
Or दूसरे तचितां तंदा दी येला द्विन दी येला द्विन दी थीमे ला योदा यसरवा थीमे
Yes.
पमे में के न्यामले चला योदा योदा इने या थिकबा छिबे दो नाला येला द्विबा तेला तंदा ngowa तेनाला के पर
Okay, so this 7 limb practice is also found in the Hinayana traditions, but specifically in the Mahayana traditions, as the dedication of the 7 limb prayer is said to have 6 characteristics.
ngowa dewa chena, ngowa khara ngowa san zochan to ngowa resirwa. Zochan to ngowa rwa.
Zochan.
Toba sanje kompa lo ngoya, sanje kompa rwa.
Honest.
Ote tambu di che, kanto ngowa sana, zochan to ngowa di che.
Yes. Okay. So the first, in terms of this dedication, the first characteristic is that it is dedicated to perfection, or that attaining completion, meaning the attainment of enlightenment. Loss.
That have my batanda Shimba Karayung Corsana. Oh, check them by Gebe Chidungo, said Roda, Gebe Shiniki, Jesus, Chidungo, Gebe Shiniki, Jesus was an outcome.
Loss relying.
Mambala Rala, Gebe Shiniki, Gebe Shiniki, Chilapchata to Na Churba. So Gebe Shiniki, Jesus, Chidungo, Bachada. I sing could it be Chidungo, Chesada. Semking la degi chua,
yes.
Semking la degi chuichi to Moa said, Oda to the Goa yes. To the watching or chore that I give to Orlando was some the massive rockson.
Lots. Okay, so if one thinks of dedicating just for the benefits of this life or the immediate lives after this, then this is very small compared to dedicating to Buddhahood, which is kind of far off and of great benefit. So this is dedicating to kind of perfection, to the attainment of Buddhahood, is like a supreme dedication. And then in terms of other dedications that would fall within supreme dedications, is like dedicating for the flourishing of the Dharma, dedicating for being able to not only meet one's teacher in future lives, but also following, like relying on their advice and instruction. Dedicating for the long life of one's teachers, dedicating for the happiness and joy of sentient beings. So all of those also would fall as come within supreme dedications.
those that see that device of an angle watch and da on the day was Sancho Molamki do sick bed to that Cholokanina and Dution as much as you did. And the Jambepo Chitra came by the Kundu Sambote at the Shinde, the Kunji Jesu Dalach, Gawadita and Jerabton was Sechua.
Really?
What that day, Karsana, Yasi Chanchu Samba, Jambeta, Kundu Sambo, Koranita, Chanchu Samba and that showed the Givanira.
Yes.
When you more Molam Karisha, the near Chigis, more Chigis, Sechua.
Yes.
Or that is all. See that more to show that Sancho Molam more do chick did it. The Omadi to social Javatam more can a chodon about it. Dagi gave it our Tigo, some Buchura to more Sechua. That is to some Sanke Tamchigi, de Mount to de Mount Tata. So you Sanke let you more courage, someone near chick, near more chicky Sechua. Or that is more pet Stagi and a pair.
And then, if in terms of dedications in relationship to the words, we have this verse from the King of Prayers, but also there is a condensed dedication, which there is one verse from later in this, which says, just as Manjushri and Samantabhadra dedicated, likewise I dedicate all of my virtues. So that Manjushri and Samantabhadras were like the supreme bodhisattvas, and this verse means that in whatever way they dedicated, may I also dedicate. So it is both very condensed and a very powerful dedication. And then after that, there is the verse, and actually we have that verse. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra to realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their example. And then the following verse is, just as the 3-time Buddhas dedicate all of their virtues, likewise in the same way I dedicate mine. So one is, again, with this verse thinking that all the virtues of all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future, as they have dedicated their virtues, likewise I dedicate my virtues in the same way. So these two verses are considered to be very powerful dedications. Loss. Loss. Loss.
Until the Amagemuchi Mangbuchi Korshani Kumalam Jagasara. That what the Amagemuti Karemolam Javatarang Japis, Malam Chapsharis. What did the Chibachan did years ago?
Okay, so there's a story, and to kind of illustrate this in the previous time in Tibet, in Lhasa at the Jokang, there was a nomad who came to the temple, and so a nomad being someone who's not kind of familiar with prayers and so forth, and so he didn't know what prayers to make, but there was an old woman there who was reciting many prayers and many verses, and so he said, may my prayers be like that old woman's. And so he just said that his prayers would be the same as hers, and this is a suitable way to make a dedication. This is okay.
What do you say that tool and it that you did some more choice the same, but on the more senate, what said there.
Yes.
Anybody can't get chet over. Can't get chet over. Can't get chet over the Karsana. My just simply time to get to more restaurant that day.
Yes.
The what they substitute and my barwa.
Yes.
Substitute and my bar. Susan Yen down, Susan Washaba down, so Chipoche to my bar. Door into simply time to do why not that day. That it Yajred out to say that Junjuna to the watch Junjuna or Simchin Kone Tunki Tamchita 담제 장주 칠모 세도요 호도.
Okay, so this all fits within the first characteristic of the supreme dedication, and then the second being for whom one dedicates, that that one dedicates for the benefit of all sentient beings, one's old mothers. So one is not just dedicating for one's own benefit or one's own family's benefit or just one's friends, the people one knows. One is thinking of all beings within the sixth class of beings. And so, and this we find also in the Bodhisattva's way of life.
어디서 다 숨바디 고박 강기 된동 거 말아.
Yes.
고박 강기 된동 거 봐 세도가라. 랑기 개와체바 되나에 메시베치 동거 말아.
Yes.
되나에 메시베치 동거 봐. 어디지 그러와.
Okay, so that, and to third being that what purpose one for what purpose one dedicates is that one's virtue is not exhausted.
장주 마토 버터 장주 마토 버터 거 봐서 다때 다치 버려도 쓰나.
The same. So another way of saying it is that it is not exhausted until oneself attains enlightenment.
어디들다 술 제다는 거 같다. 시바디 술 제다는 거 말이야.
Yes.
뭐단 가는 거 벌스나. 다단다나 다들 가르쳐 거든 술 제다는 거 쓰나. 시랍기 세야 되래 다 돈다 돌이나. 다 뭐보랑 그러와. 뭐보랑 안에 뭐 강동모와 쓰는다 조사동모와 여러분 대니바티체 안에 뭐야기 제 옛날에 야매나 뭐와래 어때 좀 되다 코스um 들는데 코스um 되게디 라시메 바인 바섬로 타네와 뭐와이나 따디 무술 되려와 술치다는 거 왔어요.
So then the fourth being the way of dedicating. So this, in another way of saying this, links to wisdom. So that again, oneself is the dedicator, the object of dedication to the attainment of Buddhahood, to the attainment of perfection. And then either one can say the dedication itself or the virtue, that is the substance of the dedication, that these three lack inherent existence. So these three spheres lack inherent existence.
어때 수치다른 거 하나는 셰랍기 신수들이 다 탑기 가르스는 샘제남라 딸람 만호와 되네로와 샘제남라 람 만호와 되는 또 거하더니 숨기 동할래 여배치도 다 어떠도 삼로 코바이나다 탑 개발진이다 탑기 심바를 되게 콘데지나 셰랍 심바를 봐도
Okay.
다시 개발진
So this way of dedicating is linked to wisdom, and then if one would say how one dedicates, linking to method, is thinking that may all sentient beings have the unmistaken method that leads to freedom from the lower realms and cyclic existence. So that is the characteristic of one's dedication linked to method.
저도 디체 따티가랑 나바티 모보 가레모 모보 강와 뭐야기 개와 가레모 벌스나 따티디레 따티라 테카르게 소소 개와 춘출도보다 두야값이 거와
Yes.
값 중수나 어때다 대화체네 안에 제 신백개와 다다 제 신백개와 마음벌 재벌기배 개와는다 디 된전냠들와 냠들 삼스탄에 뭐와 제거래서 딱 만든 남겨마도 로종 시나데와 따도 개왕 시라심 차라체서 제다지 뭐와 제기 건답에 년칼라면 직보 많이 봐. 값 가도 소소 개와 주에게 값 가도 주나에 뭐와 제거래서
Okay. So then what does one dedicate? That whatever virtue one creates, whether that is, even the smallest virtue one can dedicate, and then linked with that thinking that whatever such virtue one creates in the past, in the present, and the future, one dedicates them together. And Geshe quote from the mind training teachings that in general, there is the advice of dedicating before going to sleep, but in the mind training teachings, it says whatever moment, at whatever time one is creating a virtue, one dedicates.
What to say to you? That is, all the stock and Nova said, Nova sent a career conditionless na so Zechiko, like a Cheshire to this. This to in Dodo Mobuch Suchiko Marwa.
Yes.
To some lot and Tanchiro, the Nova Zechikone, thing and did Legaya which Cheshire, simply some lot and the Yabuleka Cheshire, which Tange the double today on show said which there were. Or that the Tindatango Sirwa. Yes, the Ngova Kai, but the Molam Redwa.
Yes.
Molamina Ngova Inko, Mother, the more the Molam Yellow Keparia.
Yes.
What the Tandai Pes Catchabatas Molam Tangova Yirane, what the catch curse of Sabari.
Okay, so then if we say what is dedication? Dedication is of an action, or literally it says like a substance, but that doesn't mean a material substance. What it means is a particular action or thought that you direct to may such and such a result come about. And so that is a dedication. And a dedication is always a prayer, but a prayer is not always a dedication. There is a difference between these two. And of the two, one would say a dedication is kind of more profound or vast.
What to say that in the Kepa took the Sine Betty Chebainata, or Be Gachimbucharwa, or that. Or Gachimbuchanata, she seems to Tamchilla. And to that pen to edge could debut on the that in the Chawa. Tangoa de Angova Chela, not a days in the Gawa Cheshan, I know I am a mount, check you, saying I need that Gawa Chamada. Then like Cheber Gawa more chocolate in it. More in Jimmy Tata Be huge go marble.
Okay, so in this way, when we dedicate with these six characteristics, we can see it makes a very vast dedication that is thinking of accomplishing actions that are beneficial to both self and all other sentient beings. And when we dedicate, it's not necessary that we need to dedicate an action of the present. One can dedicate the virtues of the past, of the present, of tomorrow, the day after, of our next lives. It doesn't need to be just dedication of an action now.
What to say that in what did that Mobushe Mogachi Podonish, the Mother Cordish Showerman or something. Touch down what the Angadu Yala Digin and Sosa Tipcha, Getesheba, Sosa Tipcha. Tango said that Dipashaba did that Dipachandirwa. Yala Shimba. So they Sosa Control, Sosa Control. Ale Yan Sosa Patipachawa. Give a compared to Tamba set with the day, give a compared to Tamba Chessiana to the end, give a compared to store. What is Sosa Tipan in Alatia, Sosa Patipachaba, give a compared to Sumlantia, what the decade share about.
Okay, so this covers what I want to say on dedication. So that these 7 limbs, we said this is for gathering the accumulations and purification of obscuration. So when the limb of purifying negativities, that falls within the practices that purify obscurations. And then the other limbs are aspects of accumulation, gathering of the accumulations. Or sometimes they mention a third category where of increasing virtue, or causing the increase of virtue, and so that's specifically the limb of rejoicing.
What the tongue move the larger Geshe Dhonam pay we pay Garsana Sanjiki Kushu Tavaki Paja Shagdwa. Ushito Pajare Tigala and do Kiwangachi Mepartave Lokta Legunde Mepartave Lokta Nerva, what to do Nimbol to Dorva, to do Nimbo. To do Tinde Andule Sasha, the third or
Okay, so then in terms of the practice or benefits of dedication, one is that it places imprints for attaining the four bodies of the Buddha. In terms of purification, it purifies previous lifetime karma. If one has fallen into nihilism of things as non-existent, or of dismissing and disparaging karmic action and effect.
Otuxereta, Ota did it Uchereta, Yala, Timpating, and some of Shumaquache. Tadi, there's some get to me to some Gua. The page of Bata Suzanam, you Givang of the Church, Korea, Givang Wachita, Sheba, Natia, Bekiver Chimbus Udwarva, or the Givang Watashi, some Latanta, some Tantanjiro, some Latantaji, Kibarwa.
Okay, so this is enough of what I want to explain on the 7 limbs, that if we understand these benefits, in general, we create virtue, but if we understand how to dedication, then this makes a great difference. Dedication is kind of, by this I mean we understand how to think, and this makes a difference.
What do the Takaji Keche, Chilatanda, Sancho Molam, and Sichivataji Kondishadi? Jambepo Chitrakimata Kunda Sambati attention the Teta Kunji Jus. Give Teta Tamjarabtungo Sadi, that Chanchu Simba Tamcheki Moacheshajuta, Tinal to dear, Tenashin Yango Sadi, the strength was it. Sixabati, to Sushibe Jawa Tamchi, to Suji Sanja Tamjeki, Kivango Nashin Yango Cheshaki, study Chidan Sancho Molam. Mauti Mola Mabusina Titani Tonda Tonto Dushavati Tingi Radio, Ola Yovache. Then I'm going to check it in a tati, take a lapchin moachere or to serve. I don't capture when they dance a capture share.
Okay, so that, and then most importantly, from within this King of Prayer, those 2 verses that I mentioned earlier, just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra to realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their example, because this is dedicating one's actions as all the previous bodhisattvas have dedicated, and then dedicate the next verse of just as all the 3-time Buddhas have dedicated their virtues, likewise I also dedicate mine, so that in terms of all the prayers or aspirations within the King of Prayers are condensed within these 2, and so they are kind of very powerful verses. They're good to have memorized them and to use them. For example, we use this verse in our class dedications.
Okay.
Okay, so this completes what I want to cover today. So we'll stop here, and what we'll kind of make the next decision about what topic we go on to in the next week. People can always send in suggestions. Okay. So
if somebody has a suggestion, just let us know, and I will think about that.
Okay, and I'm going to stop this. Okay, so short mandala. By directing to the field of Buddhas, this mandala is blessed with the base of saffron water of incense, adorned with the partners, the sun and moon, in this field. Edam Guru.